I often like to tell entrepreneurs that there's no time like the first time, and that's both for good and bad reasons. One of the things the story I want to tell you today is actually about why it's so important to be very careful in your hiring. During my first startup, which I launched in 1999 and where TK later came in as the VP of sales, it was a startup that occurred during the height of the dot-com boom. That meant it was very difficult to recruit people. In fact, everyone wanted to start their own company, and the joke was, if you could fog a mirror, i.e. you were alive, you could be hired. Well, I learned, much to my dismay, that sometimes it's better not to hire. So I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, one of our software engineers only came into work after noon each day. It's kind of unusual. Most software engineers keep kind of strange hours. But we later discovered that, in fact, we were one of his two jobs. He had another full-time job that he went to in the morning. Those guys thought he was a super early guy who got in at like 5 a.m. Then he came over and worked for us. And then in the evening, he had his own startup. Needless to say, this was not actually a very productive guy. I mean, if he were, then everyone would have been happy. He wasn't. So that was one example of, really, you should be a little more careful about hiring. The second example, and again, I can only blame myself, is our VP of HR. Turns out, he was a convicted drug dealer. Now, he didn't deal drugs while he was with us. He had, in fact, done his prison time and was reformed. But I kind of would have liked someone to point that out to me before it actually happened. Finally, our head of operations, turns out, was actually a very active member of the BDSM community. You guys can look it up if you want. I'm not going to explain it now. But it turns out that, in fact, at one point in time, my co-founder and I went to dinner at his house, and when we were leaving his house, we went down one door. My co-founder had a tendency to get lost. He went to the wrong door. I'm like, I don't think that's where we should be going, Thomas. That's actually his dungeon. Let's go out the front door. So, needless to say, again, whatever consenting adults choose to do in their own homes is up to them. But this is why it's really important to be very careful about references, to make sure that when you're hiring the kind of people that you really want to spend the next couple of years of your life with.